we want you to understand it. I mean, I'm very much into that camp of working yourself out of a job. Like, I want it so that by the time you're done with our program, if you've accomplished your goals, like if we've installed the gear and we've trained your team how to use it and you understand how to use it and you can, troubleshoot it, then we've done our job right if you're not calling us every week with issues.
Hey guys, it is officially 2024, and yes, that means the BoxCast podcast is coming back at you. I'm Gary, community manager. Welcome back to the first installment in 2024. We're very excited to have you. Listen, we have some really cool things in line this year. I can't tell you everything, nor am I going to tell you any of it. Just be super stoked for what's coming down the line. Like, comment, share, do all those cool things. Listen, if you have a question or something, we'd love to hear from you. Post down in the comments below. If you're listening to this on one of our many areas that you can pull your podcast from, that's great. Why don't you go ahead and email us over here at BoxCast. Just email support@boxcast.com. We'll get it somehow. It's not a big deal. Anyway, today we have a very special guest. Adam Beranek is with us, and he's with Churchfront. And you all know Churchfront. You've seen them on here before. You probably subscribed to their channel over at the Churchfront channel, and you are probably very familiar with Jake and his entire crew and what they do with their school as well as their integrations. So let's, without further ado, bring Adam in. Adam, what's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here, man.
Yeah, man, we're excited to have you. So I have a question to start you off just really quickly. So years ago, there was a football player named Troy Polamalu. He was for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he was very famous for his hair. The first question is, dude, I mean, he had $1 million policy on his hair. Do you have a policy, an insurance policy on your hair?
No, I
No?
don't. Maybe I should. Then maybe the insurance would cover some of the balding and the gray, right?
Yeah, probably, man. Or well, he also he had his own Head and Shoulders like sponsorship as well. You don't have a shampoo sponsorship,
Oh, wow.
do you?
No. It's just at the beginning of lockdowns, my wife was like, "Hey, I think you should have long hair." And I was like, "Well, we're not seeing anybody. We're not allowed to. So it's a good time to go through the awkward phase."
Right.
And shortly after that, I started working for Churchfront. And so it's almost like as soon as I became more online presence, everyone was like, "Oh, the guy with long hair." So now it's just part of the brand. I can't do anything about it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Adam, I'm super stoked to have you on the podcast, man. It's an enjoyable thing to be able to talk with Churchfront. Like I told Jake before, I fanboyed a long time over Jake. Now it's his entire crew are going to be joining us. I'm loving this. We're working very closely together as BoxCast and Churchfront comes more in line to help churches. So why don't you give me a little bit more about you? Tell me a little bit more of your history, just a little bit, and then kind of give me an idea of what you do at Churchfront.
Yeah. So to get to this point of where I'm at Churchfront, I'm teaching worship leaders and tech directors about all the things within a worship ministry. I go back to where I went to college to learn how to do audio and started touring with bands and working at local venues as a sound engineer, doing front of house monitors, even, booking the whole process, right? And then was going to get married and realized, the touring thing doesn't really vibe with being married. If you're making the kind of money that I was touring, I wasn't, getting a salary off of touring. And so started working at home, local venues more, and then started serving at church, and then eventually took a position as a worship leader. But the whole time that I was leading worship, I was also doing production. People would ask me, what do you like more, leading worship or doing production? And it's always both for me. So I think God put me in that position to where I was able to have, one foot in both worlds so that I could communicate with both sides of it well. That's something that we see a lot. I just got back from a site visit. One of the things that we do at Churchfront, visit churches in person, consulting, installation, integration. And they even had that kind of, hey, I'm on the tech team, I'm on the worship team, and we're not communicating and having the kind of unity that we should have. So I really think that all of the different positions that God had put me in up until this point was preparing me for doing what I'm doing now. So that's the short of it.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that's awesome. I do know one. I mean, like I told you before, like I was going to dig into a bit of your history. Like I
Yeah.
pulled your tax records. You're doing fine. So good job.
Thank you.
Thank you for paying your part of your citizens fees. Appreciate that.
Thanks to Jake.
Um,
He's a great financial coach.
there you go, man. So like, but I pulled some deeper information about you. So one of the things that I think is probably cool and fascinating, and a lot of churches they're moving into this space of like in-ear monitor mixes, is that
Hmm.
you were actually you were like an actual solo like in-ear audio mix engineer, right? Like that was one of your jobs at one point, was just for bands at a venue. That's what you did. Like you mixed their in-ear monitors alone, right?
So mostly wedges at the venue, because this was before in-ears were a big thing. But the
Right.
band that I had primarily toured with, they were all in-ears. So there was sometimes even contention with like bringing their in-ear rig and having to plug it into the console at a time when digital consoles weren't as popular. So it was always a lot of like wiring and um, making sure that they had all of their stuff set because they were pretty cutting edge with the in-ear stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were points when mostly I was front of house, but sometimes I would go and mix wedges and have a pack and solo different mixes to my pack. And I specifically bought the same all Claire in-ears as the band so that when I was listening to their mix, I was listening to it through the same type of in-ears that they were listening to it from. And I don't know if I knew this at the time, but Dave Rat did a similar thing. If you're in the audio world, you're familiar with the name, but he
Mm-hmm.
was audio engineer for Red Hot Chili Peppers, and he would even put the same drivers, so like the speaker that's in, let's say, a 2x12 guitar amp, right? The
Right.
cabinet. He would like say it's a greenback. He would put a greenback in the wedge for the guitarist, so that when the guitarist was playing and hearing his guitar through his wedge, he was hearing it through the same driver that
Yeah.
he had in his amp. So, um, yeah, I don't know. I didn't mean to go down that far of a rabbit
No,
hole,
you're
but
good,
it just
dude.
made me think of that.
No, you're good. Well, I mean, it makes sense in an audio world when you're just trying to get things to be very similar, right? And you need to hear what they're hearing. Like, I mean, nobody really wants to plug like their own set of in-ear monitors into something and say, "Oh yeah, I'm hearing just fine," but then the other person's like using another different pair and they can't hear it because the driver's not right, or there's it's a single driver and you have a dual driver, right? Like, I get that, totally understand. So, give me a hot take. What outside of All Claire, what is your favorite in-ear monitor? Like your actual favorite in-ear headphones?
You know what's crazy is I haven't tried a single other type. So if you are a manufacturer listening to this and you want to send me a pair to try them out, I will. But I've used all Clairs for, oh, I bet it's 24, over a decade. I've used the Shure 215s, obviously. Like I had those. I had a backup pair, and then I ended up selling them because one of the artists like forgot theirs on a tour, and I was like, "Here you go." But that's the only other ones that I've used, to be honest. So I've heard really good things about JH Audio. Um, I can't even think of any others at the moment.
Oh yeah,
Um,
all for I
West
think all
Tones.
for yeah West Tones, all for something another. I know Waves, Waves ear in ears.
Oh,
Those are
okay,
pretty
yeah,
good. Yeah,
WAVS. Yep.
yep. Those are pretty good in ears. And there's a couple of other ones. I've not actually. You know what? That's one of the things I've never done is I've never actually got my ears custom molded. Never,
Oh, you
never.
got to do it. You're in Ohio. I was gonna say for All Clear, they have a Nashville and a Minneapolis. So if you're in that area and you're
Hmm.
interested, you can. But otherwise, it's like $50. You can just go to some local audiologist.
Yeah. I've never done that. I've always used like the 215, 315, 415s. I've always used the Sures. I've never had any issues with them. I think they're pretty good. I've also used like the Amazon brands like you see
Oh
out
yeah.
there, like the
Mm-hmm.
one size fits all KZMs or whatever. And then there were the M6 Pros or whatever. The M6 Pros were like probably my favorites out of that budget lineup, like the $30 in ears. But yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, listen, if you're a Shure fan, Shure 215s, 315s, 415s, those are still really good. But take it from our friends over at Churchfront. Try All Clear.
Just like you guys, they come to our conference, and I
Yeah,
think that they do free molds there. So if you want to come to the Churchfront conference, maybe you got to spend $300 on airfare and a couple $100 on a hotel, but then you get free molds. So
Free
it
molds.
is worth it. And you get to meet
Well,
Gary in person.
that's right. You can come see me October 1st through October 2nd this year, 2024. There's a nice little plug for Churchfront. No problem, guys. But anyway, all right, let's jump into some more of the bigger things I want to talk about. So you do a lot of integrations and installations for churches. You do a lot of consultation work. And I know from without a shadow of a doubt, you've got some complications that you solve. Like that's what your guys' job is. Like you guys have moved away from, well, not I wouldn't say away, but you're actually becoming a little more rounded in your aspects of what Churchfront is actually doing. First, you guys started off with like news, information, and the really good tutorials, and now you went into like the course study work, and now gear recommendation, and now you're kind of going into this consultation integration phase where you're like doing all of it, and then just bringing everything to a head by having the right people with the right stuff. So Adam, talk to me about that a little bit. What does the process look a little bit like that? What would a church need to do, or how would they want to go about doing something like that? Why is it important?
Yeah. So I guess just like quick practically, it's just if you're interested, you just go to the website and apply. But then the big picture behind the scenes is, maybe you've worked with an integrator before and you know that or you call Sweetwater and, we love Sweetwater, but, sometimes you pick up the phone and call someone and they're a sales engineer and they don't know as much about, the full scope of what's going on. Because they don't have the luxury of getting to spend all day, every day researching, the best new products and practicing putting them into place in real life situations. Because that's what we're doing. But we really understand who you are. I had a really cool alliteration, if I can remember it. Dream, design, and deploy. So we talk about what are your vision for your church and your goals, and really understand you, not just like, okay, you're a church you have this many seats, this is the dimensions of your building, here's all the stuff that you want. It's more like, okay, do you have a focus on your in-person versus your live streaming, or both, or do you have a specific ministry that only meets on Sundays, or do you have different things going on throughout the week that you need to account for? Just really understanding who your church is and what the goals are. And then from there, we can design. I don't remember what my D word was for this, but we take inventory of what you have. So we don't just say, here's all the new stuff that you need to buy. I don't get any money if you buy this piece of gear or you already have a piece of gear.
Right.
That's not part of that. So I don't really have motivation to sell you anything. So if you have stuff that can be used, we make sure that we put that into the design. But if your goals outpace what your equipment is, then we make sure that we look at the right piece of equipment and in that design phase. And I always tell people, I do one quote. Sometimes people will say, our leadership board or council or financial team, whatever they call it, the people that make the decisions about money, they want to see three numbers of,
good, better,
best. Yep. Or, as I like to say, insufficient, that you're going to be frustrated with because it doesn't work the right way. The right solution that serves your church, or our church has a lot of money and we want you as the integrator to take advantage of that and sell us stuff that's too complicated or overpowered. So
Right.
those are how I describe the good, better, best. So I don't give people the insufficient, going to frustrate volunteers, going to be outgrown, going to have problems with it, going to have to replace it because it's not good quality. And then the other side of that of, here's something that's way too complicated and unnecessary and just makes you look cool, but it doesn't help you, So I'm not into either into those. So I always tell people, here's your one number. If you need to start with audio and wait a year for lighting and do that as a phase 2, that stuff will still be there, but I'm not going to sacrifice the quality of all of it so that you can get it all done at once.
Yeah.
It might be that you come back to me in a year because your stuff is broken and it's not working right and you're frustrated and you need to replace it again. But
That's
I
funny.
also tell people after the design or after the deployment phase is teaching people. So we want you to understand it. I mean, I'm very much into that camp of working yourself out of a job. Like I
Mm,
want it so that by the time you're done with our program, if you've accomplished your goals, like if we've installed the gear and we've trained your team how to use it and you understand how to use it and you can, troubleshoot it, then we've done our job right if you're not calling us every week with issues.
right, right. Yeah. I mean, that's what I was taught. And young man in ministry working in churches, like, work yourself out of a job. Like, I mean, that's the whole point. But thing is, you'll never, ever, ever get there only because there's this stuff changes constantly. And you're
Yeah.
always learning something new. We're always updating things, even in the BoxCast world, we're, doing the same thing. We're always updating something and pushing a new release out for something, like a new feature or a new update on something. So yeah, that makes total sense. So talk to me, Adam, about what you see as a common problem at these churches. Like when you go in, what is like one of the biggest problems you're seeing? And when you go into kind of like deliberating about what their gear is and what they need, what is one of the biggest things you see as a challenge for these churches?
Yeah, one of the biggest things is an unwillingness to remove or throw things away. I
Okay.
mean, it's like there's this, I don't know if it's just a church problem or
Oh
if
no,
it's
it is.
because personally I am more of a minimalist, but uh so many times walk into somewhere and they've got all this stuff and I'm like, "Hey, I need a cable." And it's like there's this pile of cables and half of them are broken or there's this like, overhead projector from 30 years ago and it's like in the way of trying to get to, a rack or something like that. And it's like, why is this here? Well, you know, we don't use it anymore. Actually, it's broken. I'm like, so why is it here? you know? Um, so helping people, I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm just um, what's her name?
I know who you're
The,
talking about, the lady from Netflix.
yeah,
Yeah, I forget her name too, and I'm sure we'll come up with it later in some part of this conversation. But yes, I know who you
Marie
are. Yep.
Kondo.
Yeah, that's it. There it is. Yep. I know exactly who you're
Yep.
talking about. Yep.
Marie Kondo for churches. So that's one thing that I run into is just people don't know how to do that.
Well, I
Like I
love
was
it.
talking about earlier, sometimes the unity thing between tech and worship team. Um, but a lot of times people just don't know what they don't know. And so having
Hmm.
someone with some different experience, like I said, when I was saying, God kind of preparing me for what I'm doing now, I worked in a 50-person church in a small town. And then I worked at a multi-campus megachurch in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So, pretty large city. And then I worked in a suburb of Chicago at a normal sized church. So within,
Okay.
probably 6 years, I had this experience of like small town, city, and suburb. So I got to, understand those cultures. And then I also worked in a really small church, a normal sized church, and a multi campus megachurch.
Hmm.
So, like, I was able to get that experience within 6 years of all those different, cultures and like having a 30-person staff meeting versus like calling the pastor,
Yeah.
when we need to connect about something. Um, so I just think that that's been helpful for me to be able to connect with different types of people.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, I mean, outside of like, because I mean, every church struggles with the closet of full of things that they don't need anymore, don't have to uses for, or that it's broken, and they're hoping to fix one day but never do because they can, girl's too old to be able to use. I am one of those churches. I know, trust me. I think we have like two bookshelves full of those RCA adapters that converted from RCA to quarter inch. I think we have like
Oh yeah,
yeah, this thing. Oh my gosh. Do we have baskets of that stuff sitting some places? So I completely understand. And the overhead projector, like the transparency thing, or or
yeah.
listen, we use that, we keep that just because it's nostalgic. All right, man. So don't
Hey,
don't
hey,
don't
if you
cast
pull
a
it out for a
shade.
worship night, you know,
Oh,
once in a
yes.
while or something, then
Yes.
by all means.
Oh, let's go back to our roots. Let's go. Everybody break open the hymnals. Let's roll. I love it. Let's get it, man. So, but you see a lot of these, like you see a lot of that mentality. So you're saying like one of the biggest things that you face is a mentality aspect. where churches have a mentality of like, we spent a lot of money or we spent a lot of time with this and it's here and we're just afraid to get rid of it. So how do you, as a church like consultant, right? Because I mean, you've worked in churches
Hmm.
and now you're consulting for churches. How do you help churches overcome that aspect of getting past that? Like there's got to be a level of where churches finally see the light, right? Or where church leadership
Yeah.
comes to seeing that. Like how do you help them overcome that?
Uh, Honestly, just super real here. They are paying me, right? They are giving this company money to consult them. So they're staying within that like um this mindset of we've put money towards it, so we need to follow through on it.
Mhm.
And then the other piece of that is I'm personally not attached. Like if
Mhm.
I walk into your church and I see a cable that's broken, if Brother Donnie donated that cable, I don't care. It's broken. I don't know Brother Donnie. It's going in the trash, you know? So
Poor brother
honestly,
Donnie. Poor brother
I
Donnie.
know, sorry Donnie.
Sorry,
But
Donnie.
those two like we were talking about it being a mentality kind of this like mindset shift is like those two things, like regardless of church size or what's trying to be accomplished, the fact that like they've put money towards this thing that they believe in, and then having someone that
Yeah.
with an outside opinion without personal attachments to things. My only personal attachment is to the person or the ministry being able to accomplish the goals that they've set out to do by hiring us, right?
Right. Right.
So I will help them understand what is going to move them forward on those goals, but not be caught up in, okay, this equipment was the way or it's been done this way for 10 years, so it has to stay this way. Like there are no golden calves with
Mhm.
me.
Yeah, the golden calf is a huge thing. Yeah, I know that feeling quite a bit. Yeah, it took a lot for us to move away from an analog console and to stop using, like 30-year-old punch boards to route all of our audio under the stage. Like I ripped that thing out the first minute I got and was like, "Nope, Ethernet all the way. Here we go. we're
Yep.
going, we're going Cat 6 lines. Let's go." So at least that'll last us another 20 years at the very least, right? So yeah, no, I know that the mentality thing is a tough thing to overcome, man. It really is, and it's a tough thing for churches to get a grasp on. It doesn't matter what size church you are, and it doesn't matter how old or how young the church is. There's always going to be that aspect of a mentality struggle with, especially because we all want to be good stewards of what resources we've been given. And we also struggle with the fact that sometimes the right tools don't always fall in line with the age of the tool. So with the tool being so old, you got to upgrade sometimes and get better stuff in to help make things a little bit easier, or a little bit better, or just kind of revolutionize the way you're doing things. So, but let's talk about that culture thing, because you've mentioned several times here the goals of the church, right? Like we already know the goal of the church is spread the gospel. Like we know that's the main goal of a church, right? To be a
Hmm.
community inside of their community, to help with that goal of outreach and engagement, and to get the word out, right? Obviously, to bring people into the church so they can experience whatever's life-changing events can happen there. But we oftentimes don't discuss the goal of the church when it comes to the aspect of what they want to see or what they want to do and to achieve that particular mission, right? So when you
Yeah.
go into a church, when you go into these churches and you start talking to them about that, you obviously you're giving them a consult service. What is oftentimes like when we talk about the goal, are you seeing a variances in those goals? Like some churches just want to have more pop and flash established, like, or they just want to do better audio, or they want to have a better mix in their live stream. Like, what are some of the things you're seeing down the line that churches are doing, and like, how is it more so? The words eluding me, but like, how is it more like? Why is it important? That's better. Why is it important to have the right fitting pieces into the puzzle? And how does Churchfront help bring that solution together?
Yeah. So like you said, I'll start backwards. We've got the mission of the church is to spread the gospel. And each church in its own community, in its own context, is going to do that differently. So they're, like I said, some churches that are in the suburbs, they've got
Mm-hmm.
people that they're trying to reach that, they've got it, they're pretty well off. Like, they've got a great salary, they've got a good home, they probably were, raised in a space where they could feel safe. And so, they still need Jesus, but sometimes they have to, the church has to help them realize that in a different way than people that say, like, live in a more impoverished area and there's lots of drugs. And it's very clear, like, okay, like, obviously being on drugs and not having enough money for food is not good. And
Mm-hmm.
then, a lot of times they meet Jesus and their situation changes because they have the strength to make the right decisions and,
Right.
change their life. So every church in its own specific community is going to have its own way of reaching that same mission. So the vision,
Yeah.
from God, the mission, that's the same, but the goals are the specific ways that we get to that point, right? And it's
Right.
different for different churches. So a lot of times people will want, we have a Facebook group, I'll say this, and to join it, you have to say what your biggest struggle is. You have to say, like, we just try and keep the riffraff out, of
Yeah.
people that are just trying to, like, sell stuff or, just post junk. So it's like, okay, we want people in this group that are going to help each other.
Right.
So in that Facebook group, you have to say, this is my church that I go to, this is my role at the church, and this is what our biggest struggle is right now. And that's really good data for me to, as I let people into the group, see what it is that's going on, because I get a pretty wide understanding of a lot of people are struggling with training their volunteers or specifically their live stream audio. I would say audio, live stream, and training volunteers are
Mm-hmm.
the biggest things. So,
Mm.
and a lot of people that join the program, I realize that they're having a hard time training the volunteers because they don't understand what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen that
And this
too.
is, yeah, and it's all connected, right? We were talking about,
Yeah.
you and I trying to work ourselves out of a job. There are a lot of people that have done that, and they've done that poorly.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yeah.
and this was so, like, this is my job, right? And when I left my worship pastor job to do Churchfront full time, um, I was like, okay, I have got to nail this transition out of this church, right? Like, if I
Yeah.
don't do this well, then what am I even doing taking this new position on?
Yep.
And so it was just like less than 2 weeks ago, I saw someone post on Facebook about the church that I had left, and they were doing a training, and it was like one of the audio engineers that I had trained was training someone else, and I could see on the desk they had the stage plot of the template that I had created, and they were using virtual sound check the way that I had done the training for the other team, and
Wow.
it was awesome. And I was like, man, this is so cool to see. And then the new worship pastor was like, Adam, thank you so much for leaving good systems and creating a great culture for our team. And that was like the best compliment
Oh,
that I
it's
could get.
fulfilling, man. Yeah,
Right.
it's totally
Right.
fulfilling, dude. Yeah.
But
Oh, dude.
that's not what happens every time. A lot of times
No.
people will leave a church, you know, hopefully in good stance, but a lot of times just not leaving good standard operating procedures or
Mm-hmm.
training the team well or prepping them. So I can't tell how many times people say, I inherited this system. It's a mess. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
So one of our biggest goals is to go in and simplify the system to a point where it accomplishes everything that you need it to, is future proof, but it's also documented. We use a lot of tools to document how to do certain things, how things are wired up, so that, like I said, when we leave, people have an understanding of what's
Yeah.
happening.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you guys do a really good job with explaining a lot of the detail and making it very super easy to understand. But also, like you set churches up. I've seen it firsthand. Like I've talked to churches on our own who have used you as a consulting service or had you guys come in and do a lot of the implementation, and deploying everything that you guys have recommended. So, but you guys do a really good job of making sure that that level of understanding is there. And then, of course, your worship ministry school gives you the tools that are associative to continue that training, or even so get somebody started with the training that they need. Like they bring a new volunteer in. Like, I mean, you guys have courses all over the gambit, from planning center to mixed audio basics to using the name just escaped me. Oh, Apple. It's the program that's used in Apple. People use it with their keyboards again. Dang, man, it's gone.
Oh,
That's
I
like
don't know.
that. Oh, main stage. That's it. I was like, it starts with
Oh,
an
yeah,
M, but
yeah.
yeah, main stage. Like, you guys have audio training on how to use that stuff, and like, how to actually set up an LED wall, and do all that stuff. And by the way, if nobody's aware of this, you guys just launched you guys just launched a new sub company, didn't you? Altitude, isn't it? Altitude LED.
Yeah. So, I'll try to make this short. When I lived in Illinois, there was someone kind of on the same path as me, like very much into um, helping others, right?
Right.
Within the ministry, like so we both kind of I don't know if this is the best term, but like leveled up. We increased our influence and the width of being able to help other people by not just being the worship pastor or lighting director at a
Sure.
single church, but being able to pour into multiple, worship pastors, tech directors, lighting directors. Um, so this guy named Frank, who's at Pro Church Lights now, we were kind of in that same spot, and we were helping each other, going to each other's churches. Um, and then he started working for Pro Church Lights. I started working for Churchfront, and then as Churchfront was growing and we were doing more and more courses, I was like, man, these guys, they recommend all the same things that we do, but they are specific to lights, right?
Mm-hmm.
So rather than creating our own content and recommendations, it's just like these guys know what they're doing. We trust them, so we're going to partner with them. Same with BoxCast. Like we're not going to launch a live streaming product or
Yeah.
company, but we trust what you guys do, so we're going to recommend people to you. Um, so the owner of Pro Church Lights and Jake saw, I think, this gap in LED walls, and it's something that is so integrated into what we do already and what lighting is, right? Like lighting in the wall
Yeah.
is part of all the stage design. So yeah, they had partnered in launching that company, so now we can directly sell LED walls that we have control over how it's manufactured and all of that.
That's dope. Yeah, that's really dope. Yeah. And just to give a little sneak peek, we're gonna have Pro Church Lights here on the podcast this year. So it'll be really cool to have them in here and talk a little bit about that too. So yeah. Anyway, okay, back to culture things real fast. So as we begin to wind down, I'm just one thing that really it stands out to me, right? With the way that churches have this culture aspect about them is the fact that there's always the curtailing of I want to say reluctantness, right? So you see a lot of churches who maybe bring you guys on board, and let's just put the money thing to the side because we know that's a huge factor. A budget's a huge factor in that. But if you push the money thing to the side, well, you see commonly with churches and their culture about implementing the strategies that are important to achieving their goals to achieve the mission, right? So what are some of the things that you're seeing in the reluctant side? Like, is it more so mentality based, like we talked about previously? Or do you think it's just because they're the lack of knowledge, which is where you guys would come in and fill the gap? Like, what are you seeing in the side of reluctantness for churches, and how can churches kind of overcome that a little bit before they step into a big idea of like using consulting or upgrading their services and equipment?
Yeah, I think Brady Shear says this a lot from Pro Church Tools. I think is his
Hmm.
company. He says the message is the same, the method is different, and so
Mm,
embracing that your goal is to reach people with the gospel, you know, being willing to do that in different ways, as long as your heart is in the same spot of we want people to hear the gospel and have their lives changed by Jesus, if you're willing to do that in a new way that is in alignment with all of the things that the Bible says, there's nothing wrong with doing something in a different way. Um, I think that people get stuck in just this is the way that it's been done, or
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
even even the Amish, like, they do new things sometimes, but it goes through a more rigorous progress than the rest of us have as far as
Right.
making sure that it's aligned with the culture and values. Um, but yeah, I think that people just are like, this is the way it's been done, and if we do something in a different way, it's bad. It's not inherently bad because it's new. And a lot of times they're trying to protect the senior saints. Um, like, they're gonna get upset if we do it differently, and it's like, I've seen different articles, different blog posts or videos or whatever of people and the way that they encourage those. Like, hey, we know that you've been a part of this church for a long time. Things are different. We want to thank you for the way that you have faithfully served. Not
Hmm.
like, not, and this isn't going down the path of you're getting kicked out. It's just saying, we see you. We are going to start, moving in this different direction, and we want
Right.
you to be on board because we care about young people knowing Jesus. We care about the next generation coming
Hmm.
up. And that's, I think, the more that you see a generational church, I think the healthier it is, because you have people that are older with more wisdom, willing to pour into the people that have the energy and the time, but not yet the experience. And so that can go both ways.
Yes, it
People with
can.
new experience, um, like that understands culture today and technology today, can share that with an older generation, and the older generation can share wisdom and experience. And I think that's a beautiful thing that we need to embrace in the church
Yeah.
more than just, shun, like, okay, these people are old, they don't know what's going on, we don't need to care about them. Or these people are young, they don't know what's going on, we don't need to care about them.
Right.
You know, the,
Right.
the church is multi-generational, multiracial. It's everybody
Right.
included.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've seen a major shift in that in the recent years, like the early 2000s to mid 2000s. You saw that as a huge cultural change where everybody was doing like they called it seeker sensitivity, where they wanted the young 20s to the mid 30 somethings, and that's what they wanted the whole church to be about, was 20s to 30s. That was it, because anybody above that really didn't have that aspect. And then now you're starting to see that cultural change back to, hey, we're mia la familia, right? I mean, this is my
Mm-hmm.
family, and that bringing everybody back in. And so then you see that multi-generational aspect. And it took a lot for out of my experiences as well, I've always been in a multi-generational church, and we've always seen more benefit there than being at a new church plant with 20s to 30 somethings, even though they have the cooler technology, or they're more apt to embrace technology, right? Or even more so, they're more apt to embrace quick thinking ideas and implementing them fast without having the whole bureaucratic the bureaucratic process of thinking it through and just doing it. Like, they just do it because that's the way they think. Like, hey, why not do this? Let's just do it and see what happens. So, but we're starting to see that culture change. We're starting to see that shift. And really, as when COVID hit, that really distanced the church in an aspect. Like, really, it is about the community and family, and versus it being more about the centralized building. It's about everybody in tow. And if you don't have that mentality, you're actually missing some ingredients to the soup. Like, there's a process here that happens when you have people who are eager to learn and implement, but then you also have people who have experience and know that it's good to wait and be patient, right? Or, hey, let's give this another extra few minutes here before we make that jump to that decision. So it's a very interesting thing to think about in the terms of, like, how do you talk to not only a church leader but also a church person, like a volunteer, about the importance of having that mindset of always continuously learning, always continuously gaining knowledge, but also in turn, like, let's use the systems that work. And if a new system comes along, give it an opportunity. Right. And I think that's the important thing as we step into this new founded age of artificial intelligence. Like, everything coming out of the line now is going to have AI in it somehow, some way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's a crazy thought to think about, when you go to that aspect. So just hearing what Churchfront is doing on that respect, like, you guys are implementing new technologies like the LV1 Waves LV1 system. Like, I mean, that the new system that they just brought out, like, it's all encompassing. Like, you're not having to buy the server unit, you're not having to buy a rack server unit, and all the pieces and puzzles, like, all that's coming boiling down, like the Behringer Wing or the Heritage D. I know you and I were talking about that one, like the Heritage D, the AI version that's coming out, that probably like the $30 million console that everybody under the sun is going to want to buy. But like the fact that these things are coming down the line, Churchfront is definitely at the doorstep of the church. Churchfront. Sorry, I had to do it. Anyway, you guys are right there at the beginnings of that. You're right at the forefront of that. And that's what I think we love about Churchfront. BoxCast especially loves about Churchfront. You guys have such a great following, have such a well-rounded approach and understanding to the way that the church operates. Not only the way the church operates, but the why the church operates and how to overcome some of the challenges they're facing that. So I want to give you the 1 minute opportunity here, Adam, to just plug Churchfront's, accelerator program. I want you to plug worship ministry tool program. Tell us why, how, where, and when they can get a hold of you to get started if they need to.
Yeah. So churchfront.com/apply. If you want to learn more about the program, you'll get a 15 or 30-minute free phone call where we just talk with you about, hey, let's find out who you are in your church, what your goals are, and see if it's a good fit to work together. Sometimes people say, I just want this one thing fixed, and you can get like a paid coaching session with me, and sometimes you get to understand, like, okay, this is what the experience is like of being in the program. And a lot of times we realize, like, we should go down this path of working together. And yeah, it's just churchfront.com, and all the socials are Churchfront. If you want to follow me specifically on Instagram, it's just my name, Adam W. Beranek. You can search for that. But yeah, I would love to help you. This is my bread and butter. This is what I get to do every day. And I love getting to help churches see their vision and their goals fulfilled.
Absolutely. And Adam is like really, really good at it. I'm not kidding.
Thanks, man.
Like, you are one of the best, and I hope to see the legendary Adam when he's like, got the long gray hair and he's got it all back and ready. I want to see legendary Adam. Like, you're evolving
Adam
like
the
a
Gray.
Pokemon. Yeah, that's right. Adam the Gray. Yes. Oh, yes. Okay. Robe and staff are coming, dude. We're doing this. Okay. I'm going to have one made for you just specifically for that. But listen,
I
if
love
you're
it.
interested in it, I love it too, man. If you're watching or listening and you're interested, check out all the links down below in the comment section as well. And it will always be as it always is. Hey, we really appreciate you, Adam. Thank you so much for joining me today, man. I look forward to more conversations with you and the rest of your team. And as always, I hope you have a really good day, dude.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Listen, if you're not familiar with the way BoxCast operates, listen, we are becoming one of those amazing organizations that help churches with their outreach and engagement. And we're really excited to help you. And so give us an opportunity to discuss that. Click the link down below to talk with one of our dedicated people who can help determine whether or not BoxCast is a good fit and what your needs for your church are and how we can do that. Okay. And then more so, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can always reach us down below, support@boxcast.com, or go to our website, boxcast.com. We're happy to chat with you. As always, I am super stoked about this new year, and I cannot wait to talk with you guys more. Again, we appreciate you. And as always, from this point forward, we hope you have a good day and happy streaming.